NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated role.
Playa Grande, Costa Rica, a place where crystal waters brush against the wild arms of the jungle. On any other day, it's a paradise. But on July 20th, something darker claimed that beach. Malcolm Jamal Warner, 54, was on a family vacation. A stroll into the ocean turned into his final moment. Authorities claim a strong current dragged him under. Bystanders rushed. The Red Cross worked on him for over 20 minutes, but nothing could bring him back. Warner was gone. The incident happened Sunday in Costa Rica, specifically off the coast of a town called Coclis in the Limon province. He was swimming at Playa Grande, a beach I've personally visited with my family. The waters there can be deceptively strong. Still, the official version, accidental drowning, swept away, no foul play, feels oddly clean, suspiciously fast. Because Warner wasn't just another vacationer, he was Theo, a symbol of black excellence across generations, a familiar face who spoke hard truths. So when we're told he vanished without anything unusual, we have to wonder, what aren't we being told? Here's where it starts getting strange. Another man, 29, from Nicaragua, was in the water during the same incident. Authorities say he tried to save Warner, but his identity remains hidden. No photos, no statements, no name. Why the secrecy? If he was a heroic bystander, why the blackout? Friends say Warner was a capable swimmer. Playa Grande's currents, while strong, are well-charted and rarely fatal, especially on calm days. Something doesn't sit right.
So unbelievable there. And Branson, I also was reading that just days ago, he had another podcast episode that was dropped, and now a lot of fans are starting to really listen to that as maybe one of his last times that you hear him.
And then there's the timing. Just days before his death, Warner dropped what would become his final podcast episode. Not all hood, his bold new platform had only been live a month. But this episode was different. It wasn't soft or playful, it was confrontational. A no-holds-barred critique of how the media and Hollywood commodify black culture, reduce it to stereotypes, and profit from it. He didn't mince words. Living in this country means playing with a stacked deck. In hindsight, it sounded less like commentary, more like warning. Did Warner know he was pushing into dangerous territory? Because history doesn't lie when outspoken black entertainers speak too openly. The pattern often ends in silence. Prince, Nipsey, Chadwick, Michael. The list keeps growing, and the exits keep getting stranger. Warner wasn't reckless. He was precise, calculated, which makes his final words all the more chilling, like he was gearing up to challenge something or someone.
Just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile. And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile.
And that brings us to the Blacklist Theory, a whispered list circulating quietly among Hollywood elites. Those who speak too loudly, challenge too openly, or refuse to play the game slowly disappear from the spotlight. Or worse, the list reportedly includes actors, musicians, directors, names who stopped getting roles, lost deals without explanation, or met tragic ends. Was Warner on that list? Think about the timing. Podcast launches in early June. By mid, discussing legacy theft, media control, and black erasure, sharper than we've ever heard from him. Then, days later, he's gone. The Costa Rican authorities, they closed the book fast. No follow-up interviews, no family statements, no image of the rescue, no press conference. Just silence, and a neat label: accidental drowning.
Morning swim, he had gone out to the coastline just before sunrise, and a little after sunrise got into the water. Not too many details about what exactly happened once he was in the water, but authorities did end up finding his body actually hundreds of yards away down the shoreline. His body was discovered in a rocky cove. It was brushed up against that rocky cove.
But what truly raises eyebrows is the unnamed rescuer, initially reported in critical condition, within 48 hours, fully recovered and released. That's an incredibly fast turnaround, too fast. According to Dr. Mauricio Solano Corella, he truly just a bystander. Or was he there for reasons no one's admitting? Some suggest he may have been part of Warner's inner circle, though officials deny any connection. Eyewitnesses said the man didn't run into the water. He was already in it, watching, waiting. So we ask, did Warner drown while a stranger tried to save him? or was something more calculated unfolding?
Really was a multi-decade career in Hollywood, spanning several different shows. I did a little bit of research before this, and he had about 84 credits on his resume before passing away at just 54 years old. And TMZ also obtained photo, possibly the last photo of him that we may even have ever seen on TMZ.com at the airport on July 13th coming into Costa Rica. It's just so tragic to look at that photo and think that just a week later he'd be passing away.
We've gone through the incident reports, and one thing is constant: vagueness. Terms like swept away, attempted rescue, brought to shore, no precise timeline, no definitive sequence of events, no confirmation of Warner's condition on arrival. For a high-profile figure, that kind of fog is unusual, and Warner himself once said in 2013, "I have peace of mind, and for me, that's priceless." He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He had a wife, a daughter. He stayed out of the spotlight by choice. He was building something honest, something lasting. So why now? Just as his voice was finding clarity, power, and reach, did it fall silent? Even his podcast co-hosts, Way Baraka and Candace Kelly, haven't spoken publicly. No tribute episode, no final word, nothing. The show, like its host, disappeared overnight. And while the world mourns the actor, few seem to notice the loss of the advocate, the thinker, the man who was just beginning to ask dangerous questions.
And I think what so many people can appreciate is he was a true creative. He talked about African-American culture in such a beautiful way. I think Wendell Pierce put it best when I saw something that he posted. He challenged himself in music, art, cinema, spoken word, and writing. He had a huge capacity for joy. He exercised his right of self-determination.
Even Eddie Griffin, Malcolm's longtime friend and coster, left subtle hints in his tribute. "We went to war with the Hollywood machine, sometimes even with each other, because that's what brothers do." But what war were they really fighting? Who was pushing back? In recent years, Warner had started mentoring younger actors, encouraging them to question the roles they took and the images they projected. He wasn't just an old sitcom star. He was actively challenging the system that made him famous. A system, insiders say, that doesn't tolerate criticism from within. Now, we have a beloved actor who died under mysterious circumstances, a rescuer whose identity remains secret, and a final podcast episode that now reads like a goodbye wrapped in a warning. Yet the media offers no real questions, only the usual quiet headlines: drowning confirmed, tragic loss. But this story feels unfinished. There are details that don't add up, timelines that fall apart, and a man who until his last breath was trying to tell us something whether we were ready to listen or not.
Historic and frozen in time as this iconic character. What did that mean for television, and what does it still mean to this day?
Sam, Theo Huxtable was me. Theo Huxtable was my brothers. Theo Huxtable was the first time someone that looked like me saw someone that looked like himself on television. He was the epitome of what we as kids, in a certain community were growing.
Let's zoom out and recognize a troubling pattern the industry ignores. Remember how Chadwick Boseman kept his illness private while grinding hard? How Kobe Bryant's helicopter crashed in fog? How Nipsey Hussle's community efforts ended violently? Different situations, but all powerful black figures representing strength, ownership, and reinvention. They were more than entertainers or athletes. They shaped narratives, changing how we see ourselves and how the world sees us. And every time one of these voices goes silent, the official story says it's a tragic accident or coincidence. But how many times will we accept coincidence before it looks like a disturbing pattern? We're not saying the same forces control every death, but the industry certainly profits whenever a fearless black storyteller is silenced.
What do you want people to remember about him?
Oh boy. He was never afraid to go to his room and study and make sure he followed whatever he had learned in the acting school.
This is where Malcolm Jamal Warner fits in this troubling pattern. He wasn't just reflecting on the past, he was redefining legacy, calling out gatekeepers, pushing conversations about mental health, respectability, politics, and the ongoing misrepresentation of black culture. He had influence, trust, and crucially, nothing left to prove to the system. That's the kind of profile that sets off alarms behind closed doors. Former publicists reveal the existence of unofficial lists where executives rank talents. Who's manageable? Who's volatile? Who's a risk? We've heard from multiple managers that when someone is flagged as a threat, the industry doesn't always blacklist openly. Instead, projects stall, invites dry up, and public images are quietly recast as difficult. In the worst cases, tragedies are framed as unfortunate but uncontested accidents.
Turning now to a Hollywood tragedy, we're all trying to process this. Of course, we're talking about the death of actor Malcolm Jamal Warner. He is just 54 years old. Officials say that he drowned while on vacation with his family. He was in Costa Rica at the time.
Now, let's focus on Costa Rica, a deliberate choice. Warner was intentional about his work, family, and reputation. Costa Rica sells tranquility, pura vida, eco-retreats, offshore havens for investors and tech workers. But beneath that surface are pockets of corruption, quiet land disputes, and a tourism system that tightly controls scandals that could harm its image. If someone wanted to stage an ordinary vacation tragedy for a high-profile African-American figure, it's hard to find a more picture-perfect yet plausible location. Why Playa Grande? Why that day, in broad daylight, with busy beaches and lifeguards present? Why was the current not especially dangerous that week? And why did the mysterious second swimmer, who survived and was stabilized, disappear without a trace? Mauricio Solano Corella told People the 29-year-old was treated, stabilized, and discharged with no complications. But someone described as critical hours earlier doesn't usually vanish without even a managed PR statement. Hype. Rescues don't play out like that unless someone wants it that way.
Yes, obviously so heartbreaking. Such a tragedy. Here in the office, so many Cosby Show fans of this wonderful actor, and he had a very long career even after the show that he was known for.
Then there's the autopsy, asphyxiation by submersion. The official ruling, filed quickly and closed even faster. Costa Rica's judicial investigation has its rules, and we respect them. But the speed here tells a story. Exceptions happen when the case draws global attention, yet here the curtain drops silently. We've seen this kind of precision before, when narratives need to be locked down before uncomfortable questions multiply. Studios deploy NDAs like smokescreens. During scandals, marketing teams pivot instantly to reshape headlines. We're supposed to believe such a clean investigation on an international figure wasn't carefully managed by a communications playbook. Remember what his podcast was building? A lasting archive on mental wellness in Black communities, exposing how African dance was misrepresented and the double standards in who gets complexity versus stereotype. That kind of work, if it gains momentum, crosses into classrooms, think tanks, communities, spawning books, panels, tours, influence, far outside Hollywood's usual control. We know how that story usually ends.
In terms of the things that continue to perpetuate the negative stereotype of people of color, we've always had the Cosby Show to hold up against that.
Let's revisit that word legacy, because this is where things get heavier. Samantha Shepard, the Cornell cinema scholar, called this loss a significant cultural moment. She named exactly the leverage Warner held. He was still Theo to millions, who grew up watching him nightly. He had the ear of Gen X and the nostalgic loyalty of early millennials. But beyond that, he was Grammy-recognized, active in the podcast scene, and mentoring the next generation. It's not hard to imagine who might get fatigued by a figure refusing to be flattened by enough success. He kept pushing the narrative forward. He refused to become a relic, and we can't ignore how often that trait paints a target. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Over the past few years, we've watched both celebrated and controversial figures go through the same grinder. Spontaneous tragedies, sudden health collapses, freak accidents. The FBI never shows because none meet the threshold of obvious external crime. Studios mourn, brands post tributes, and everyone moves on, except the communities who see the shadows connecting the dots. There's growing mistrust that official reports and industry eulogies tell the full truth, and honestly, why should we just assume they do?
What's good? Yes, I got the flower in my hair. Today's my daughter's birthday. She put the flower there, so I'm rocking it. What? It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. I just wanted to shout out and just spread some love and some good cheer. And, you know, life is out here lifing, right? For me and for everybody else. But
those close to Warner knew he was cautious about where he took his family, careful with security, deliberate with schedules. A former road manager, speaking anonymously, said Warner didn't do spontaneous trips in unfamiliar countries without thorough checks. This clashes with the story that he just walked into a dangerous current, UNMONITORED. Who recommended Playa Grande? Did a travel concierge linked to entertainment companies arrange it? Was there a fixer behind the scenes who knew exactly where currents run and how? Jurisdictional delays could affect first responders. These questions arise when too many coincidences stack up. Looking closer at the Costa Rican emergency response. 3 ambulances arrived for 2 adult male patients. The Red Cross said both were out of the water when paramedics arrived. So, who pulled them out? How many bystanders were involved? Were any trained? Why hasn't a single witness surfaced on social media to tell their story for clout? A predictable impulse these days. Silence might come from respect, but it can also come from signed legal agreements.
The salesman said this will last a lifetime. And just think, if I live to be 90, that's about $1 a year.
Talking legal, Hollywood has mastered global operations with the same discipline as domestically. Crisis communications teams fluent in multiple languages ensure international incidents don't spiral into domestic PR disasters. If one final podcast was seen by some execs as the start of a message campaign spiraling out of control, it wouldn't take a Bond villain to manage perception. Just a few phone calls, some no comments, and a swift foreign bureaucracy happy to avoid US culture wars. Meanwhile, tributes poured in, genuine, heartfelt, carefully worded. Tracy Ellis Ross called him warm, gentle, kind, thoughtful, funny, elegant. Beyoncé said, "Rest in power." Malcolm Jamal Warner. These aren't scripted condolences, but they mark boundaries of what's allowed publicly. No one with enough platform to shake the room asks why we still don't know the rescuer's name, why records closed so neatly, why the podcast suddenly stopped. That silence speaks nearly as loudly as any tribute. Malcolm Jamal Warner, known for playing Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, died on Sunday.
Malcolm Jamal Warner, an actor who rose to fame as the beloved Theo Huxtable on 8 seasons of The Cosby Show, died on Sunday. Officials say the 54-year-old was swimming at a Costa Rican beach.
We also have to consider the hard truth. Maybe it was a tragic accident. Maybe currents don't discriminate. Maybe the rescuer wants privacy. That's the official line. And maybe it's true, but put this alongside the pattern. The black icons linking authenticity to rebellion, then exiting with an ellipsis trailing behind, and there's a knot in the throat that won't go away. Whether or not there's a secret blacklist, whether or not Hollywood nudged something in Costa Rica, the system still wins when a voice like his goes silent and the public is told not to dig deeper. We knew Warner and his character Theo moved with integrity and intention in the roles he accepted. His legacy will last forever. He will be missed. Our love and prayers go out to his family. That brings us back to the warning in his last project. Not all hood. It was never about clout. It was about plurality, showing how vast and layered black identity truly is. The simplified TV version is an eraser disguised as representation. If you run an industry comfortable with that eraser, the last thing you want is a former sitcom son with cross-generational credibility, turning his mic into a lantern and walking into the basement. We felt it in our bones. He was about to go deeper. Press on power. Name the unnamed dynamics. Now, that journey has been interrupted. The questions hang in the air like static. For now, we leave you with this. A calm beach, a turbulent story, a silent rescuer, a loud absence, an accidental ruling wrapped in suspicious speed, and a final podcast that reads like an interrupted manifesto. We see a list of black legends who challenged the script and were gone before the third act. The only question left, if someone like Malcolm Jamal Warner can be silenced just after sharpening his message, who's next? Tell us what you see, what you think, and who you don't trust. Because the pattern is either coincidence or it's a playbook. We'll be watching the comments. We're not done digging. Stay loud, stay sharp, and until next time, hold your breath, but never your truth.